Everything you think you know about Cleopatra may have been written by her enemies. For more than 2,000 years, the world has remembered one woman as history's greatest seductress, a queen whose beauty could conquer the most powerful men on earth, the woman who captured Julius Caesar, the woman who destroyed Mark Antony, the woman who brought an empire to its knees. At least, that's the story we've all been told. Movies, paintings, novels, even school textbooks repeat the same image, a breathtaking queen whose beauty changed history. But what if almost everything you think you know about Cleopatra came from the people who wanted her erased? Because the surviving evidence tells a very different story. A woman who probably wasn't the legendary beauty Hollywood imagined. A ruler who spoke multiple languages, a brilliant diplomat and political strategist, and perhaps the victim of one of history's most successful propaganda campaigns. So, if Cleopatra wasn't remembered for who she really was, then who created the image we know today? And more importantly, why has the world believed it for over 2,000 years? To understand the myth, we first have to understand the man who benefited from it. His name was Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus. By 31 BC, Rome was no longer just fighting Egypt, it was fighting itself. On one side stood Mark Antony, one of Rome's greatest generals. On the other, Octavian, the ambitious heir of Julius Caesar. But there was a problem. If Octavian admitted that he was fighting another Roman hero, it would look like a civil war, and Romans hated civil wars. So he changed the story. Instead of telling Rome, "I am fighting Antony," he told them, "I am saving Rome from a dangerous foreign queen." Cleopatra became the perfect enemy. Not because she was Egypt's queen, but because she could be turned into something far more useful, a seductive Eastern monarch who had supposedly bewitched Rome's greatest men. According to this story, Julius Caesar wasn't making political decisions. He had fallen under Cleopatra's spell. Mark Antony wasn't choosing his own future. He had become the helpless victim of a manipulative queen. It was brilliant propaganda. If Antony had lost because of his own decisions, Romans might have questioned their heroes. But if he lost because of an irresistible foreign temptress, Rome could protect its pride. The narrative spread quickly. Roman poets repeated it. Roman historians preserved it. Generation after generation, the story became stronger. The powerful queen slowly disappeared, replaced by a legend that would survive long after Egypt itself had fallen. But here's the problem. When we compare that legend with the evidence Cleopatra left behind herself, the two women don't look the same at all, and that's where the real mystery begins. So, who was the real Cleopatra? Ironically, the best place to begin isn't with a painting or a Hollywood movie, it's with something far less glamorous: coins. Unlike portraits painted centuries later, these coins were minted during Cleopatra's own lifetime, approved by her court, seen by the people who actually knew her, and they tell a surprising story. The woman on those coins doesn't resemble Hollywood's legendary beauty. She has a strong jaw, a prominent nose, sharp features, the face of a ruler, not a fantasy. Even the ancient Greek historian Plutarch, who wrote only about a century after her death, made an interesting observation. He never claimed Cleopatra possessed unmatched beauty. Instead, he wrote that her appearance was not altogether incomparable. In other words, her beauty alone wasn't what captivated people. It was something far more powerful: her voice, her intelligence, her presence. Plutarch described a woman whose conversation was so compelling that people wanted to keep listening. She didn't simply enter a room, she commanded it. And that makes sense, because Cleopatra wasn't raised to be an ornament. She was raised to survive. She became queen at just 18 years old, in one of the most dangerous royal courts in the ancient world. Assassination, betrayal, civil war. These weren't exceptions. They were everyday politics. Unlike many rulers of her time, Cleopatra invested in knowledge. Ancient sources suggest she spoke multiple languages, possibly as many as 9: Greek, Egyptian, and the languages of neighboring kingdoms. She negotiated directly with foreign ambassadors, without relying on interpreters. A remarkable skill in an age when language itself could decide the fate of kingdoms. She understood economics. She managed Egypt's fragile alliance with Rome. She rebuilt political influence after years of instability. And when Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria, Cleopatra didn't simply rely on charm. She recognized an opportunity and outplayed every rival around her. She knew exactly what was at stake. Without Rome's support, her throne, and perhaps her life, would not survive. The more you examine the evidence, the harder it becomes to believe that one of history's most successful rulers changed the ancient world simply because she was beautiful. No, Cleopatra's greatest weapon was her mind. So why, after everything she achieved, does the world still remember her as little more than a beautiful temptress? The answer lies not with Cleopatra herself, but with the storytellers who came after her. History isn't always written by the winners. After Cleopatra's death, Octavian became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. He didn't just inherit an empire, he inherited the story, and he made sure it was told his way. Over time, Roman writers repeated the same image: a dangerous queen, a master seductress, a woman whose beauty corrupted great Roman men. Whether they fully believed it or not, the story served Rome, because every generation that repeated it made Augustus look more heroic. Centuries passed, Egyptian records disappeared, Cleopatra's own voice was lost, but the Roman version survived. Then, during the Renaissance, the story was reborn. One playwright, more than anyone else, gave Cleopatra a second life: William Shakespeare. In Antony and Cleopatra, he transformed history into tragedy. His Cleopatra was brilliant, passionate, unforgettable, but she was still defined through love, through Antony, through emotion, not through statecraft, not through diplomacy, not through the impossible political game. She had managed to survive for decades, and because Shakespeare's works spread across Europe, his version became the version. Then came cinema, massive Hollywood productions, lavish costumes, golden palaces, and unforgettable performances, none more famous than Elizabeth Taylor in 1963. The film became an icon for millions of people. This wasn't just a movie, it became Cleopatra, until eventually the legend felt more real than the woman herself. Today, if you ask someone to describe Cleopatra, they'll probably mention beauty, romance, luxury, seduction. Few will mention her economic reforms and political intelligence, or the extraordinary challenge of keeping Egypt independent while Rome was consuming the Mediterranean. Perhaps that was the greatest victory of Roman propaganda. History isn't just about what happened, it's about who gets to tell the story. Sometimes, the victors don't simply win battles, they win memory itself. And maybe the greatest weapon in history was never the sword, it was the story. So the next time someone tells you, "This is what happened," ask one simple question: who wanted me to believe it? Because if the world could misunderstand Cleopatra for more than 2,000 years, how many other stories are we still getting wrong?